So this Shabbos, we're all learning Parshas Masei in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. So the Torah begins with Eila Masei b'nei Yisrael. Parshas Masei begins with Eila Masei b'nei Yisrael. Sheyotzu meretz Mitzrayim litziv oisam b'yad Moshe v'Aaron vayichtov Moshe es moitzoeihem lemaseihem al pi Hashem ve'eila maseihem lemoitzoeihem. Truth is that the Matos, the journey of Klal Yisrael in the Midbar is coming to an end. And the Masos were really, we would think, only a means to the end, to entering Eretz Yisrael. Now we're already on Arvoi Smoyav al Yad and Yerechai, which is what all the Masos were for. So why would we now dedicate so many psukim to discuss where we were? I mean, all the 42 different places that we were. Why would we be repeating that now? So Rashi already says, Lama nichtavu hamasois halolu, and he brings in the name of Rav Moshe Hadarshan, which was a collector of Midrashei Chazal. He said, "Afal pishe gozar lahoidiach chasodov shel mokem." This is coming to tell us the chesed of the Rebbeinu Shalom, that even though he was gozer letaltalam ulahaniam bamidbar, loy toimar. Don't think shayu noim umetultolim mimasa lamasa kol arboim shona v'lehoisa lahem menucha. Don't think they had no rest for all those 40 years. No, they're only 42 masos. And that's not the entire chesed. That's not the entire chesed. But as Rashi explains, that Tzei Mehem Yud Dalid Shonim, Yud Dalid Shekulam Hoyu B'Shona Rishonim. There were 14 masos in the first year. Koydem Gzeira. Mishenosu Miram says Achebo Larismo Shemishom Nishtalchu Amiraglim. So anyway, 14 of the masos took place in the first year. And 8 masos were after Misa Saharan, which was in the last year, in the Shnas HaArboim. So it comes out that for 38 years, they only traveled 20 masos. So that's the chesed. That's the chesed. That they did have relative stability in the Midbar, in spite of the fact that there was so much traveling going on. And Rashi adds that Reb Tanchuma Doresh by Drash Acheretz, Moshel HaMelech, Shehoyo B'noi Choyle, V'ayli Choyle L'mokem Rochak L'rapoisoi, Kivin Shehoyo Choizrin, Hitzchel Oviv Moine Kol HaMasois, Amalei Kan Yoshanu, Kan Moikarnu, Kan Choshash Be'ezroishcho. In other words, that when they travel back from the doctor, the father reminds the son what we went through on the way here, which is an expression of the togetherness of the father and son. And so also HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now telling Moshe Rabbeinu to write all those masos. It's somehow an expression of kirvas halavavos. It's somehow repeating this, the how we spent all this time together in the Midbar is an expression of Ava, of the father to the son, of the Rebbeinu Shalom to Klal Yisrael. And as the Medrash Tanchuma is, Kan Hichisuni. I guess that's also part of the picture, that even in the places where Klal Yisrael misbehaved, but nevertheless the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't give up on them, and he continued to be in a relationship with them, and they overcame all those obstacles, and that's part of mentioning all these 42 masos. It's interesting because in the mashal, the Melech tells his son, Kan Yoshanu, here we slept. Kan Oikarnu, here we cooled off. Kan Choshashta, over here you had a headache. But so in the mashal, he's not just mentioning the places, but he's actually saying what happened over there. Whereas in these psukim, we're just mentioning the names of the places. There's no mention of what happened over there. So it could be that, the Targum Yodesim Ben Azil says that the names of these places are not really the names that these places had all the time, but these are names that were given by the Torah to these places based on what happened over there. Like the Targum Yonis Zil says, Vishoru Besukos, Asra de Ischafiu, Shivas Anane Yikra, that they rested, they encamped in Sukkot, the place that they were covered with 7 Anane Hakovet. Ushroi Berefidim, Umetul de Rofin Yedehoin mi Pizgame Oiraisa. So Refidim stands for the Rifyon Yodayim Divrei Torah, Kivreis, Kivrei de Mishali Bisra, B'Makelois Asar de Iskanoshu, Korach V'Siyate, Al Moshe V'Aharon. So in the Nimshal, I guess also maybe all the places represent a certain thing that happened over there, and therefore the Nimshal and the Mashal are pretty much the same. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going over with them what they've gone through during these 40 years. Now the pasuk says, "Vayichtov Moshe es moitza ehem lemaseihem al pi Hashem ve'ele maseihem lemoitza ehem." What does moitza ehem mean? The simple meaning of moitza ehem is the point of departure, and the moitza ehem is from where you depart and you embark on the Masei, on the journey. So l'chara, it's moitza ehem lemasei, because he's mentioning not only the journey, but he's mentioning each one of these 42 journeys that they started at a certain point, from the point where they encamped. So it's moitza ehem lemasei. But what does the pasuk afterwards say? Ve'ele maseihem lemoitzaehem. I mean, were they going? Was the journey to the point of departure? The point of departure was where the journey began. So the beginning of the pasuk said it right. Vayichtav Moshe moitzaehem lemaseihem al pi Hashem. But what does the sefer of the pasuk say? Ve'ele maseihem lemoitzaehem. You know, so the Ksava HaKabbalah has an interesting reading. He says that moitza ehem means like kol ha-moitzois oisoi. It means what found them, what they experienced, what happened to them. Maseihem le moitza ehem. Moitza ehem le maseihem, maseihem le moitza ehem. It's miloshin kol ha-moitzois oisam baderech. So it's so the Fiza, you could say really that the first time Moitzeim has the meaning of the departure point, Moitzeim lemaseiim, but then Maseim lemoitzeim has the meaning of what happened to them during these journeys. But this is a mechudesh de pshat. It's not like the Rishonim. So what's the pashut pshat? Moitzeim lemaseiim, maseiim lemoitzeim. There's an interesting idea that the Klei Yokar says. He says that he's medayik another diuk. It says, "Vayichtav Moshe es moitzeim lemaseiim al pi Hashem." The eile maseim lemoitzeim. So it only mentions al pi Hashem in the context of moitzeim lemaseiim, but it doesn't mention the al pi Hashem in the context of maseihem lemoitzeim. So he says, "Shebemiktzas masois holchu lefonim." Some of these masois, actually, most of these masois, they were moving forward. Ubimiktsasam, some of these masois nazoru ochar, they were going backwards. Kimitchila, as it says in Parshas, b'shalach vayoshuvu vayachanu lifnei pi hachiros. Rashi says, vayoshuvu vayachanu lifnei pi hachiros. Sheholchu la'achoreihem litzad Mitzrayim. This was a backwards masa. The V'chein b'Parshas Ekev, it says, Mi be'erois b'nei Yakon moiseira, Rashi says, they went back, shmoine masois la'achoreihem. They went 8 masois backwards. So he says like this, Nimsa, sheroiv ha'masois asher holchu b'hem lefonim v'loi la'achor, v'hoyu al pi Hashem, nikru moitzeim l'maseim. Those masois are called moitzeim l'maseim because they were going from the point of departure onto their journey. And that was al pi Hashem. That was the way it was meant to be. Ki hafchu pneim and amokai masher yotzu misham shenikro moitzeim upneim el maseim asher oil lefneim. Avol masher nozoiru ochor ba'avur shekilkalu b'cheiv. When they had to go backwards because they were choite, lo yhoya al pi Hashem. that we don't call al pi Hashem. V'nikra mas'eyem lemoitzeim. Shechozru v'nosu lemokim sheyotzu misham anikra moitzeim ki hafchu pneim letzad Mitzrayim. They were going backwards. So this is really a very beautiful reading. But, you know, the pasuk says, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yoshuvu v'yachenu l'fnei pi achiros. Rashi says, K'dei lahatois es paroi sheyoymar toyim hein baderech. Right? So this return, this masa that was backwards, was clearly al pi Hashem. I mean, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yoshuvu v'yachenu l'fnei pi achiros, and it wasn't because of any aveira that they did, but it was K'dei lahatois es Mitzrayim. So why would this not be defined in the pasuk as al pi Hashem? And the emphasis, the going back, the 8 Masos from the areas Bnei Yaakov to Masei doesn't appear in our parsha. So, in other words, it doesn't appear. So it's not like it says over here the Maseihem lemoitzaehem. The only one that it says is that the Yoshuva v'yachnu l'fnei pi achiros, and that is really mefurish in the pasuk, has nothing to do with any avera. So, but we could say that much, that the reading of Matzayim l'Maseyim and Matzayim l'Maseyim is really his reading, that without the dikduk of al pi Hashem, we can just say that in this journey there was Matzayim l'Maseyim, and there was also Maseyim l'Matzayim, which was what happened by the Yeshuvu v'yachenu l'fnei pi achiros, and that's why the pasuk uses both lishonis. However, this still leaves us wondering, because the lashon of the eile maseihem l'moitzaehem is mashma that it's talking about all the masos, not just about one single masa that was a backward masa. It's mashma that all the masos were moitzaehem l'maseihem and maseihem l'moitzaehem. So we don't know pshat. You know, the Balaturim on the pasuk says, "Moitzaeim l'maseiim ubasa hachi hofach because of maseiim l'moitzaeim loy masha kol hoy al pi Hashem bein masa bein moitza." Now, this is also not move on. Yeah, what is he saying? I mean, if it would have just said that Moshe wrote, "Vayichtav Moshe es moitzaeim l'maseiim al pi Hashem," we wouldn't know that everything is al pi Hashem, bein masa, bein moitza. Why does the Torah have to write in the Sefer ve'ele mas'ehem l'moitzaehem in order that we should know that it was all al pi Hashem? Bein masa, bein moitza. Agav, you see, he's actually saying pum fakert than the Klei Yoker. The Klei Yoker says that the al pi Hashem is only going on the reish of the pasuk. He's saying the avad is going on both. But how is this teaching us? What is it teaching us? So it could be like this, because the Gemara says in Shabbos Daf Lamed Aleph that Rabbi Yossi holds that a soiser almanas livnois bim kaimai, you know, in the malacha of stira, destroying something, destroying a house. So you're only chayiv if you're a soiser almanas livnois, because otherwise it's a mekalkel, and a mekalkel is potter. So Rabbi Yossi holds that it's not enough that you're soiser almanas livnois, but you have to be a soiser almanas livnois bim koimah. But if you're soiser almanas livnois, you're going to rebuild the house, but somewhere else, then you're not chayiv, because it's still considered a mekalkel. So he asks Rabbi Mechdi, kol malachos mi mishkan yalfinan. The malachos of Shabbos we learn from the Mishkan. V'hasam soiser almanas livnois shaloi bim koimahu. Every time we took down the Mishkan, we put it up somewhere else, not in the same place. And the malacha of stira, we learn from the taking down of the Mishkan. So how can Rabbi Yossi say that it has to be a sois amanas livlis b'm koimai if at the source it was a sois amanas livlis shaloi b'm koimai? So the Gemara says, Shani osam, given the ksiv al pi Hashem yachnu, k'sois amanas livnois b'm koimayu. Since it says that they're resting, their encampment, they're setting up the Mishkan and the Machnis was al pi Hashem, therefore it's considered almanas livnois bim koimoi. Now, I mean, the fact that we need a almanas livnois is for the purpose of taking it. It shouldn't be considered a makalkal. And Rabbi Yossi obviously is saying that it has to be seis almanas livnois bim koimoi, because if you take down the house over here and put it up somewhere else, so not everything was rebuilt. Meaning to say that there's a dimension in the house which is the location, and that is not restored in a soiser almanas livnoi shaloi bim koimoi. In order for it to be no makalkal at all, it has to be restored here, because only if it's restored here did you restore everything that once was, because it's the house with the location, which is a dimension in the structure. So l'chayre, I mean, so what's the idea that since it's al pi Hashem, so it's like a sois almanas livnois bim koimoi? The fact is, it was shaloi bim koimoi. What does it mean that it's considered like a soiser almanas livnois bim koimoi? The Rabbeinu Chananel says, "V'shaninon kiven d'ksiv al pi Hashem yachnu v'al pi Hashem yiso v'yitochen sheyomer lahem shuvu chanu b'mokim shesartem." There was always a possibility that the Rebbeinu Shalom will tell us to rebuild the Mishkan right here. So memela kesois almanas livnois bim koimoi dami. In other words, it wasn't a sure thing that the next time we're putting up the Mishkan will be somewhere else. It could be that it never happened, but it could be, theoretically, that we'll be putting up the Mishkan again right over here. And therefore, it's Kesois Almanas Livnois Bim Koimoi, because we were really dependent on the word of Hashem, and he could have said that we should put it back up over here, and Mamela, it's Kesois Almanas Livnois Bim Koimoi. This is a very mechudesh pshat, because l'chayre, you need the mekoimoi in the almanas in order that it shouldn't be considered a makalkal. If somebody is going to take down a house and he's mesopik, he's not sure, maybe he'll put it up over here, maybe he'll put it up over there. So is that going to be a sois almanas livnois bim koimoi? In order that it should be considered a sois almanas livnois bim koimoi, you have to be committed to putting it back up over here, because only then is it not a makalkal. If you don't know if it's going to be here or it's going to be somewhere else, it is a makalkal. So his pshat is mechudesh. The more pashut the pshat in the Gemara is that the Gemara is actually saying that given the al pi Hashem yachnu, it's considered the same place, as we shall see. The Mishnah in Brachas says, "Haroyem mokoim shenasu boi nisim li Yisrael." Oimer baruch she'asa li neis b'mokom hazeh. If somebody sees a place that nisim happened to Eden, you make this bracha, baruch she'asa li neis b'mokom hazeh. Frag the Gemara mino anamili. Amar Rabbi Yochanan d'Amakro v'yomer Yisroi baruch Hashem asher hitzil. We learn from Yisroi saying baruch Hashem asher hitzil as Yisro miyad Mitzrayim. We learn from there that a roya mokom shenasu b'nisim l'Yisrael makes a bracha. Frag the Marsho v'im toimar ha'anisa derabim nami loy mevarchinan ela b'mokoim hanes kediktoni a roya mokom. V'Yisroi loy ba eleihem ela b'midbar Sinai she'en kan nisim de Mitzrayim v'lei de Kriyas Yamsuf. I mean, so he was making a bracha on the nisim of Kriyas Yamsuf and Yitzias Mitzrayim, but he didn't see the place. He came to them in the midbar. So how are we learning from here the halacha of haroya mokoim shenasu boi nisim li Yisrael? So asks the Maharsha. So if we say that the Gemara in Shabbos reads kipshutai, that kiven the ksiv al pi Hashem yachnu kesois almanas livnois bim koimoi dami, which means that all the places of encampment are considered one place. So then, it says, "Vayisu mi pi achiros, vayavru b'toicha yom hamidbar." So when Yisroi met them in the midbar during their Masais, he actually saw the Mokim Shenasu B'Nisim L'Yisrael, because it's all one place. Because Kiven Al Pi Hashem Yachanu, it's considered Bim Koimoi. In other words, they're not in a different place. But what is this supposed to mean? So, you see, when somebody destroys a binyan, so we're saying if it's Almanas Livnei Shaloi Bim Koimoi, so it's considered a makalkal because the dimension of place, the dimension of location wasn't restored, so it's a makalkal. But how about if you have a binyan, you have a structure that requires being in place A, B, C, D, and so on. In other words, that the shleimus of this thing is being in all these places, meaning that every place that you pass is actually registered as a dimension in this structure. Then the uprooting it from here and putting it somewhere else is not considered that you got rid of the original location, but you actually held on to the past and you added the next place, but you didn't get rid of the old place because the old place and the new place are all part of what this needs and what brings this to its shleimus. So you see, since it's al pi Hashem Yisu, al pi Hashem Yachnu, the Mishkan really needed to be in all these places. And Memela, all these places are part of what makes the Mishkan be what it is. And therefore, it's like a Soy Salman Aslivnis Bim Koimoy, because the mile of a Soy Salman Aslivnis Bim Koimoy is that I didn't lose the dimension of place. I didn't lose that. And so also in the Mishkan, we didn't lose that because the Mishkan needed to be in all these places. In all these places. You know, the Magen Avram in Orachaim, Siman Tov Chav Ches, Steve Cotton Ches, brings in the name of the Sefer Tzror Hamor that the Mem Beis Masei Shebe Parshas Ve'ela Masei Ein Lahafsik Behem. We call up one oiler for all the Mem Beis Masei Shehu Neged Shem Mem Beis. It's connected one of the shemus of the Rebbeinu Shalom, which is the Shem Mem Beis, the Shem of 42. The Mem Beis Masei are connected to the Shem of 42. So if that's the case, it's obvious that these Masois all create one entirety, one shleimus. It's the Shem Mem Beis. So it's not like each place uproots the previous place, undoes the previous place, but each place adds on to what we already have another place. And therefore, it's not a mekalkal. This soiser is not a mekalkal because it's enabling me to add on the next place that needs to be added on to the Mishkan. We could really say b'derech remez, according to the Shor Amor, that al pi Hashem Yachnu, al pi Hashem Yiso, that the Chanoyos and the Masois are shaykh to the Gilui of the Shem Hashem in this world. It's connected the Mem Beis, the Shem Mem Beis. Vayichtov Moshe es moitzaeim l'maseim al pi Hashem. Now, you know, the Rogatchover, the Tzavos B'nei HaTorah, he writes Kedarkoi in shorthand. He writes like this: Vayichtav Moshe es moitzaeim l'maseim al pi Hashem Rotza loyma. The whole mitzias halichem in makom l'makom oy ikar hakavana bi l'makom hasheni oy yitzia mika. In every halichem in makom l'makom, it's either or. Either you're trying to leave where you're leaving, or you're trying to get where you're getting to. V'kan hava mitzvah gam etzem halichem. Over here, it wasn't about leaving where we left. It wasn't about getting to where we got. It was the halicha in itself. V'cheina mekoymes shebeemtza haderech have a gam kein mitzvah. Ki kol dover afshu echreichi l'chor hakol b'chavonas mechuven u'mitzvah al pi Hashem kimavur Shabbos daf lamed aleph v'daf ayin hey v'erev in daf nun hey v'chulei. So, in other words, that's Al Pi Hashem Yachnu, Al Pi Hashem Yiso, and that, he says, means that the whole thing is one shleimus. It's not like we're leaving here, we're going there, but it's all part of the same shleimus. So, when the Masois are written in the Torah, Al Pi Hashem, that's really teaching us that the Masois were not just a means to get to our destination. It wasn't just a means to leave where we are or a means to get to where we're going to get to. The end of the 42 Masois, which is the end of Parshas Masei, which is actually the end of the Torah, because after that we have Mishnah Torah. The last of the Masois is Arvei Smoyov. Arvei Smoyov is also still part of the journey because we still didn't get to our destination. So it's all about the journey. I mean, we never get to our destination in the Torah. It's only in Sefer Yoshua that we get to Eretz Yisrael. Yes, so it's really all about the journey, and the journey in its entirety is what makes what makes it happen, what makes up the shame of Membeis, the shame Membeis. So it could be that this is what the pasuk is saying: Moitzaim l'Masayim and Masayim l'Moitzaim. From the point of departure, they embarked on the journey, but the journey didn't get to a destination, but it got to a point of departure. Al Yad Yarden Yerechai. Because the point is the journey in itself. So it's taka moitzaim l'masayim, but it's masayim l'moitzaim. What's the moitzaim? Yarden Yerecha is still a moitzaim. We didn't get to a destination at all. And maybe that's what the Balatura means when he says, "Basa hachi hafach v'kosav masayim l'moitzaim loymar shakoil hoyo al pi Hashem bein masa bein moitza." In other words, it means that it wasn't about moving further away from the departure point. It wasn't about getting closer to the destination. It was al pi Hashem. In other words, and there were also regressions in this masa, but it was all bekavonas mechoven from the Rebbeinu Shalom, and with it all together, we get to the Gilui Kvoid Hashem, the al pi Hashem, the Shem Mem Beis. The Rabbeinu Bachye on the pasuk writes, "Va'oid yichlol." Sipur amasois toyelas acheres ki yirmois lo osid shahari divrei hanavim kulam moichichim shaguulo haachroina kedimyon harishona, that the ultimate redemption will be as the first redemption from Mitzrayim. Ukashem sheyotzu Yisrael begeula rishona miMitzrayim el hamidbar kain begeula haachroina asidim sheyetzu harbe miYisrael el hamidbar. Very interesting. We don't know exactly what that means. Asidim sheyetzu harbe miYisrael el hamidbar v'yavru b'mekoymois ha'ela, and they'll pass through these spots that are mentioned in Parshas Masei. V'Hakadosh Baruch Hu yechalkeleim v'yanaleim k'moi she'asa liYisrael b'midbar. V'hu she'amar ha'kosav. Yeah, there's a pasuk in Yecheskel Chof v'hitzeisim el midbar ha'amim. It doesn't say v'hitzeisim el midbar ha'amim. It says in the pasuk v'hivesi oisam el midbar ha'amim. But midbar ha'amim pashtus is an expression. Midbar ha'amim. He's saying that it means actually this midbar. V'hakosav yirmois ze mimashi hiske kashtei pa'omim moitzaeyem. Vayichtav Moshe es moitzaeyem. V'chosav amim ve'ela mas'eyem l'moitzaeyem. Ki echad hu yitzias Yisrael miMitzrayim v'asheni yitziyoseinu min ha'golus ha'chol hazeh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'rachmav yimaher yochisha ma'aseh ha'gula b'korev v'nagila v'nismucha boy. Okay, so we don't really understand how this is practical, what this practically means. But one thing we hear that the Geula Achroina is going to be b'dimyon harishona, and it also means that we, in our journey towards the Geula, are actually also making Masois in the same way as Klal Yisrael made in the Midbar. We are having that experience in the Midbar Ha'amim. And the important lesson is that there's Moitzayim l'Masayim and there's Masayim l'Moitzayim. Sometimes we're going forward, sometimes we're going backwards. But the going backwards is also part of the Shleimus. V'haraya, the Shem Mem Beis is made not only by the moving forward, but also by the regressions, because the regressions are part of the progression. And therefore, even when things are going backwards, we shouldn't give up. The Degel Machne Ephraim in this week's Parshas says, Da sheshamati b'shem Adoni Avi Zakini, the Baal Shem Tov, the Chroine Levracha, he called a Membeis Masois, he called a Masois Hoyu Membeis, the haymates of Kol Odom, Miyomi Voldoi at Shuvay Alagomai, that every person in his personal life experiences Membeis Masois. The Sfas Emes and Tafresh Mem Vav writes, V'nichnevu Kol HaMasois, Lo Hidia La'am Hashem, he called Oived Hashem, Lo Yipoy Liboy, Olav, Mikol HaNefilas Sheyesh Lo. Ki kachu amid Elias Oila V'yored, Umikol Menucha Shehisigu Achar Eizem Ulchama, Hischom Ulchama Acheres. Yeah, you think it's Moitzayim l'Masayim, but it's again Masayim l'Moitzayim and v'chayze Chalila. Yes, he says, you think you got to a point of Menucha? No, it turns out that this is not really a menucha. V'chein la'olam vayisu vayachanu. K'moishe nemar, like the pasuk says in Tehillim, Yelchu Michael El Choyel, she'ein lahem menucha la'ovdei Hashem. Shal zeh nivru, lilchem milchamois Hashem. Ubevadai milchamois shehoyu l'klal Yisrael, hoyu dvorim hanoigim l'chol habriya. U'me'ein zeh nimtza b'chol prat l'fi mashu. Everybody has that on some level. So it's on the level of the cloud, on the level of the prat. The point is that life sometimes goes in circles. Sometimes it's moitzaim l'maseim, and sometimes it's maseim l'moitzaim. But we have to believe that it's all al pi Hashem, and in as much as we recognize that it's al pi Hashem, and we don't allow it to disconnect us from the Rebbeinu Shalom, so we're actually bringing out the kvod shomayim that comes from overcoming obstacles, from dealing with challenges, from moving forward even if we fell backwards. As we say, Heima koru v'nafolu v'anachnu kamnu v'anisoidod. We don't say v'anachnu lo nafalnu. We don't say that. We say Heima koru v'nafolu, and that's the end of the story. V'anachnu, after the nafolu, kamnu v'anisoidod, we can get up again and we could move forward. So that's the message of Eile Masei B'nei Yisrael. Rabbi Say, I wish you a guten Chodesh und a guten Shabbos. And yeah, that's the story. Okay.